Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to episode 3 of Chess Mistakes of an A Player. I wanted to start out this video by taking a look at some of the statistics I have created so far. I've looked at 30 games, counting the games from this week, 10 games per video. In the whole period, by the way, I have a total of 117 games, so that would make 12 videos if I keep up this pace of 10 games per video, which seems about right. So anyway, in these 30 games, I started to collect some statistics about how many mistakes I've made and what kind of mistakes they were. So the total number of mistakes I counted was 45, which might seem like a small number, but I'm not counting every mistake. I'm only counting what I call critical mistakes. So if I'm in a losing position and I make a move that loses quicker, or if I'm in a winning position and I make a move that wins but not quite as fast, those are technically mistakes, but I'm not counting them. I'm only counting mistakes as moves that change the course of the game or could have changed the course of the game. So, for example, if I'm in an even position and there's a move that would win and I don't play it, that's a critical mistake. So I would count that, or obviously any move that I make that changes the evaluation from winning to either drawn or losing, then that counts as a mistake. So of these mistakes, there's 45 mistakes in 30 games. There were some games without any mistakes at all from my perspective, and using that definition. Those are games where my opponent makes the first mistake and I get enough of an advantage that I'm basically winning the rest of the way. But most of the games had mistakes, and many games had several mistakes. So on average, 45 mistakes in 30 games, so 1.5 per game. Of these mistakes, 2 of them occurred in the opening, 28 in the middle game, and 15 in the end game. So it doesn't mean that I'm not making mistakes in the opening. It just means that they're not critical. So some, no doubt, inaccuracies occurred in the opening play, but nothing that really changed the course of the game. Most of the mistakes occurred in the middle game, which is what I'd expect. It's the most complicated phase and where the errors tend to creep in. I was a bit surprised at how many mistakes occurred in the endgame for 2 reasons. One is, I don't always appreciate how complicated endgames can be, but they can be quite complex. And the other reason is that, lots of my games don't even really reach the endgame, or by the time they do reach the endgame, their outcome is already settled by something that has occurred in the middle game. So it's a bit surprising for me to find so many mistakes occurring in the endgame. That indicates maybe one area I need to work on my chess understanding. Another way of breaking down the mistakes, I classified them according to whether they were strategic or tactical in nature. And once again, it's not too surprising to find that most of the mistakes are tactical. It's a little surprising, in fact, that there's so many strategic mistakes because, I set a pretty high barrier here. If I made some minor strategic mistake that didn't really change the evaluation of the game, it wouldn't really show up here. So there's clearly some significant strategic misunderstandings that I have. Maybe I should put it that way. And I would think against stronger players, there's certain moves I didn't count as strategic errors because they were sort of minor, at least in my level. But I think against a stronger player, they can exploit these minor strategic errors and turn them into wins through technical means. So I suppose as I get better, or if I face stronger competition, this percentage of strategic errors would go up. Anyway, looking at the tactical errors, I divided them according to whether they were due to a missed opportunity. That's, for example, if I had a move that could have won the game and didn't play it, or if it's just a bad move. There were several moves that would have maintained the current status of the game, and the bad move changed the status from either winning to drawing or losing, or from drawing to losing, that kind of thing. And so it's, 2/3. 2/3 of them were just moves that I make of my own free will that were bad, and 1/3 of them were opportunities I had to improve that I missed out on. And let's see, the last thing I looked at was this process. And in particular, I was looking at phases 1 and 4 of the tactical of the process to select a move. Phase 1 is the tactical scan, where you try and understand the tactics and the position before you start thinking about moves. And then phase 4 is the blunder check, the final blunder check before making the move. And eight errors in this case might not seem like a lot, but it's pretty significant considering these are the kinds of things that can be easily eliminated just by exerting a little more care in how I play. So this indicates kind of the low-hanging fruit of things that I might go after to try and improve my play. So those are the areas. Yeah, from my initial survey, working on a better process, maybe something about my endgame skills and my strategic understanding. Some of these strategic errors also are probably due to a faulty process, and in phases 2 and 3 where I'm considering candidate moves and comparing them, if I'm not doing a good job of that, that probably shows up as a strategic error. These process errors here, I was just talking about phases 1 and 4, the tactical scans. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's take a look at the first game here. I wanted to show you this position. I have the white pieces here. And the error occurs in a move or two. I just wanted to give you some of the lead up. It's my turn to move. He's just opposed queens. I decide to trade queens, so I take. He takes back. And now it's my turn to move. And I make a mistake here, which I counted as a process error in phase 1. Phase 1 of the process is that initial tactical scan. So black has a tactic in this position that I completely missed and ignored, and I made a move just ignoring his threat. So if you want to take a moment, this should be something you can find. So pause the video and take a look at it. Okay, I am going to give the answer away now. There is a tactic in the position that black has. Black can simply take this pawn. And when he grabs the pawn, I can't take back because, well, I can take back, but I'm losing the bishop. There's a pin. There's a pin operating on the c3 pawn, so he can play knight takes d4. And it's interesting how this tactic arose, because in this position, if we back up even more, say in this position, there is no tactic. The queen is protecting the bishop. So this pawn is perfectly well defended. There's no pin on the c3 pawn. But my opponent played queen here. I traded queens. He took back, and now it's my move. And this tactic has suddenly appeared. So I think this shows why it's important to have this little tactical scan before you even start thinking about your move. Because these tactics can appear when you're not really expecting them. I was thinking about trading queens. I wasn't thinking about what other jobs the queen was doing and how the absence of the queen now creates this tactic on the board. Yeah, so I just played rook g1 here. He played knight takes d4 and got a nice game from this. So anyway, that was the first example. Nice simple one, an error in phase 1. The next one I wanted to look at, let's see, was this game. Move 16. And I have the black pieces here. Let's turn the board around. Okay, it's my turn to move. Let's back up. Yeah, my opponent has just played the move e5. I've got a King's Indian defense here, kind of an old-fashioned kind of King's Indian, almost like a Benoni. If with some trades, this could turn into something like a modern Benoni if he takes here and I take. Where white has a lot more space. But from an engine point of view, black is still doing okay here. He's not... it looks like white is just kind of pushing him off the board here, but with careful play, black can hold this position. And I make a mistake, and in this position, it's my turn to move. And it's a mistake that's based on a tactic. So here, let me put on the engine to make sure I don't go astray here. Make sure I get this right. So there's a couple moves that I can play here that are okay. Bishop f5 is a nice tempo move on the queen. That'll be a good move here. And then bishop f5 followed by knight e4. That's the top choice of the chess engine. But even if I don't spot that, I mean, I have to do something about the knight being under attack. Obviously, this pawn came here and threatened the knight and threatened the pawn. The other way to play it, if I didn't spot that bishop f5 idea, would be simply to retreat the knight to e8, and I can hold on to the position that way. But I didn't play either of those moves. Instead, I took the pawn, and my plan was, here, let's erase these arrows and give you a chance to spot the tactic here. My plan was, I take the pawn, he takes back, and I take with the queen. I think I've just won a pawn there, and I've also freed up my position a little bit. I've given him, maybe some dangerous pressure on my backwards e-pawn, so it's not like I feel like I've gone to winning, but at least I picked up a pawn and have something to show for my troubles here. So that's what I'm thinking. So what is wrong? That's the question for you. See if you can figure out the tactics here. What is wrong with pawn takes, queen takes? Okay, pause the video if you want some time to think about it. This one's a little deeper, but you might be able to find it. It's, well, I'll go ahead and put it on the board now, so pause the video if you want time to think about it. I took, he took back, and I took with the queen. And the problem is bishop to f4. The bishop is defended by the rook here, and there's nowhere for the queen to go. The queen is completely trapped. So this is what I missed. And so these queen traps are tactics that are hard to spot. You see all these squares are covered by his bishops, and his queen is covering that square. Let's see. Actually, queen f5 could be played here. Let's see. Queen here and queen here. It gets taken here and gets taken. So let's try queen f5 and see what goes wrong there. Then bishop to d3. No, bishop to d3. Let's back up. What's that? Oh, bishop to d3, hitting the queen this way, and there's just no way out for the queen. So anyway, yeah, the queen goes to h5. I'll continue the line, and bishop takes b8. He gets the rook over here. So okay, so it's more than the queen trap. It's also the skewer. Yeah, I knew this was a little bit complicated, but it's easiest to see just the skewer. So if we back up here, the idea of taking here and team back and taking with the queen runs into bishop to f5 there, and I'm losing at least the rook in the corner. Okay, and the other point, which I didn't notice, but after he takes back, I don't have to take the queen. I could move the knight here, but now this isn't so good. Let's see. How about if I try to throw in this bishop f4 move? Now we can just take this off with the rook. And then take here and get two pieces for the rook and disrupting my my structure here. Actually, he's going to get a third piece because this bishop is going nowhere. So I've lost the opportunity to play bishop f4. F5 rather. I had that here because the pawn is blocking the rook. Now I can't play that anymore after this trade. And let's see, if the knight just retreats, that was the other way of playing it, then white gets a good position by pushing on with d6 here, hitting my queen. Okay, so interesting. So that's, let's back up. Just put this position on the board. That's a lot of stuff to think about, but there were a couple of good moves here, and really it was a tactical error that I didn't realize my queen on on e5 was a target. Okay, the next position. Yeah, let's close this. Next one I wanted to look at was this one. Let's see, move 29. I have the black pieces. And let's back up. Okay, there was just a trade here, right? He just, let's back up once more. He just took my queen. I took back. And then he played the move bishop to f1, getting his bishop away from my knight. I just brought my knight forward to here. And it's my turn to move. And I make what I call a strategic mistake here. And let's see. Well, the move, I'll go ahead and tell you the move I played. I played the move f6. I'll go ahead and put it on the board. And the problem with this move is it doesn't really deal with white's plan. So this isn't a tactical oversight, but it's kind of a strategic oversight. I'm not taking into account what my opponent's plans are and what I can do about them. So he executes his plan. This f6 didn't do anything to slow down my opponent's plan. So he plays out the moves that he had planned, I think. brings his rook in. He's invading on the 7th rank, attacking my pawn. I defend it. He brings his knight in, double attacking it. I defend again. And then he plays rook a7 and goes after this pawn. And I have no way of actually holding that pawn, and he wins the pawn. But if we back up, that's not even the best move in this position. Let's see if we put the engine on again, just to make sure I get the answer right. I'm just completely tied down here. My king and my rook are tied down holding on to this pawn. This bishop has no moves at all. Look at all these squares that are covered by his pawns. And I can't come out on either side because of his rook. So he's got me completely tied down. My only piece that's really free to move is the knight. And so anyway, he can win a significant advantage here by playing knight to a7 and harassing my bishop. So that's the best way to play. He didn't even play that the best way. I think he was just following the sequence he had planned out ahead of time. So if we back up to where this started, when I played the move f6, it's clear, I have to worry about his plan of invading, and it's also clear that I have one really bad piece here, and I can actually deal with both of these problems by playing the move bishop to d7. That way I control some of these squares where his knight is trying to invade, and his rook now doesn't come with tempo hitting the pawn. So rook c7 is still a good move, but I have chances to play on in this position. I mean, white is still better, but the move that I played went from where I'm struggling to where I'm just completely losing. So interesting sort of strategic ideas here. One is being aware of your opponent's plans, trying to find ways to deal with them. And the second idea is looking at which of your pieces are poorly placed and trying to make the best use of them, get them to better squares. I was kind of reluctant to play this move because it does leave this pawn hanging, but well, it looks like I have time to organize a defense. Okay, well, I don't know. He might actually win that pawn with best play. I can't say for sure. Yeah, this pawn is hanging. If he takes immediately, however, rook a8 gets the pawn back. So I think it's the combination of rook c7 and bishop takes a6. Those threats combined make this a difficult position, but just taking right away isn't good. So I have some room to kind of wiggle and squirm after bishop d7. Okay, that's that one, and I had one more I wanted to show you. And this one is a nice tactical one. Let's see, I had the white pieces here. Cancel that. Let's back up to this move here. Let's see. My opponent had just played the move knight to e4. And it's my turn to move. And there is everything, I guess, if I did the tactical scan, I might notice that black is kind of pointing his pieces towards my king. But there's no immediate tactic here. The tactic occurs after I plan out my move. I decide I want to challenge this knight here. And after thinking of various ways to challenge it, I decide the best way to challenge it is to move my knight to d2. And before I played that move, I should have done the blunder check. This is an example of failing to do a blunder check. So imagine you're in this position and you're thinking about that move, knight d2. Why is that move a terrible blunder? This is pretty easy, so pause the video and think about it till you get it. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away. There's actually, after knight d2, there is a mate in 2 on the board. Kind of a cute mate. Normally you don't think of the queen and bishop lined up as a battery as being such a problem, because the bishop just comes here and gives a check, and the king goes to the corner, and there's no problem. Usually it's more of a threat when the bishop and the queen are reversed and the queen comes here to deliver mate. So I wasn't overly concerned about this until the next move. Actually, I saw it right away when he played the check, but I let him play out the mate as well. the bishop has chased the check from the bishop has chased the king away from defense of the f2 pawn. And so the knight there delivers mate. The king has no squares. So it's just a mate in 2 after knight d2. Pretty cute mate. It's always nice to learn these mating patterns if you haven't seen one like that before. So in this position, before I move the knight, there's no immediate threat because I'm covering that square. But, well, maybe a tactical survey would have uncovered this idea that I need to maintain the knight here to protect against tactics that are on the board. But certainly, before I played this move, I should have done the blunder check and realized that just check and mate it's only a mate in 2. Not too hard to find in a blunder check. So anyway, a nice finish to that game, at least for my opponent. He spotted that one. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.